Pokemon cards are impossible to find, but how did we actually get here? 3 years ago, you can go into any store and pick up any set you wanted easily, yet now you can't find anything on the shelves anywhere you go. Let me explain to you exactly how we got where we are and take a look at where we are going in the future. 2023 is kind of where the story begins because that's the debut of the Scarlet and Violet set of cards, and it's coming off the heels of the really fantastic Crown Zenith set, which concluded the Sword and Shield era. But what's interesting is that the Scarlet and Violet sets, the early ones, were really not met with much fanfare. That first base set in Scarlet and Violet really had nothing of note. Like, even now, the most expensive card is that Gardevoir card, and that Gardevoir card is like a $60 card 3 years later, and that's like the top chase of that set, which is pretty crazy. When Paldea Evolved came out, the next set, we look at it now really favorably, right? With all the illustration rares and especially, obviously, the Magikarp. But even that set, no one cared. I mean, Magikarp came out and for a while was a $50 card, and now it's raw. It's almost $400 3 years later, and everyone's in love with it. And that was followed up with Obsidian Flames, and even at the time, it seemed like, oh, Obsidian Flames is going to be a pretty big set, right? No. Same thing. I mean, the top chase card, that Charizard card, even now, 3 years later, give or take, that's like a roughly $100, a little over $100 card. So those three early sets that came out 3 years ago to start off the Scarlet and Violet era really didn't do much for collectors. And yes, there was an investing scene at the time, especially because this is the post-COVID era, so there was investing and interest in investing, but it was still in its relative infancy, at least compared to how widespread it is right now. Everything kind of changes with what happens next, but not immediately. And that's with the release of the Scarlet and Violet 151 set. That's kind of like the premier set, right? That came out for the Scarlet and Violet era. And that was only the fourth set that actually came out. And yet, even though it was printed like in probably more quantity than we had seen in the previous sets, because it was pretty much everywhere. I mean, you could literally go anywhere and get it. It's not like it was immediately huge, even though the cards in it, in hindsight, are so fantastically awesome. Yet at the time, it was readily available. People weren't clamoring. No one was fighting in stores, certainly, to get their hands on any of the 151 product, which is why it's so interesting that would eventually become like the earliest spark in all of the huge collecting interest, bringing back a lot of fans, a lot of nostalgia tied obviously to that set for the longtime fans and people getting back into the hobby. And what came out afterwards is really not much better. Paradox Rift came out, and that's really seen as kind of like a meh set, or at least certainly at the time it was. But that was followed up in January by the Paldean Fates set. And when Paldean Fates came out, that didn't get any crazy fanfare either. Even though that now has three fantastic chase cards, headlined of course by the big Bubble Mew card, which is going for over $800 now, which is crazy because it was very affordable when it originally released. So what's interesting is how these things kind of appreciate, and not, I mean, investing, but like actually the cards themselves are appreciated more, kind of in hindsight, but not at the time they were actually coming out, like I guess many great historical artworks are, right? But that was followed up by Temporal Forces, another set that was kind of meh, but it is getting closer to when people are going to start taking investing actually seriously. And this is going to kind of coincide with the Twilight Masquerade set, which isn't seen as any particularly amazing set, but it does have that Greninja card right at the top. And once those values are starting to climb on that card, and while looking at the same time at Paldean Fates values climbing, and of course the 151 set climbing, these factors are really what are going to influence in the actual rise in the market of Pokemon cards themselves. And it's interesting because following that, in August of 24, you had Shrouded Fable, then you had Stellar Crown. Those are sets that are really like the, I guess the underdog sets of the Scarlet and Violet era. But finally you get the Surging Sparks. And I've said this before, but Surging Sparks came out in November of 2024. And that is when I started to see stock disappear from shelves. That was the first time where I was able to get product 1 week when it came out, and then I never ever saw sealed product again, just to open for fun. Like, you couldn't find anything anymore, and that's when it's really starting. So roughly 2 years ago with Surging Sparks. And I think a lot of that has to do with, as I said, the rising prices in those previous big sets, 151, Paldean Fates. But a lot of the anticipation was rising because of Prismatic Evolutions. I actually have a video that I posted like 2 years ago about how big that set was going to be. And it makes sense. And it makes sense because that set is so reminiscent of Evolving Skies, which at that time, and I think Evolving Skies came out in 2021, those prices kept increasing. And Evolving Skies obviously is an all-time fantastic, amazing set. Incredible chase cards, headlined obviously by the big Moonbryon card. But as those cards are rising in value, people are kind of paying attention and saying like, hey, these evolution cards, right, headlined again by Umbreon, those are going up. And Prismatic Evolutions is like another Evolving Skies, but for the Scarlet and Violet era. And essentially, that is exactly what happens. Prismatic Evolutions, even with its terrible pull rates, which it does have, becomes an instant, classic set with a bunch of chase cards, all worth hundreds of dollars, and the market and the hype and fervor for Pokemon cards just shoots up exponentially from there. Interest in the sets is basically skyrocketing at this time. Once you get Journey Together, which is a set that is kind of like overlooked, and it kind of makes sense why. But once that set comes out, everyone is just going crazy. Not for that set, but for the next set, Destined Rivals, which is gonna be huge and is another fantastically huge set. And once Destined Rivals comes out, and that's about a year ago now, pretty much Pokemon collecting, but especially investing, is becoming so mainstream, and you're seeing it in the news, both good and bad, unfortunately. And take a look at the next set, right? You have Black Bolt and White Flare coming out in July, and what's funny is most of the reaction at the time is that, oh, no one really cares about this set. It's so exclusive to the Gen 5 Black and White Pokemon. But that set, that with all the exclusive Black and White Pokemon and the fact that it has illustration rares of every single one of those Pokemon, which is really cool and novel, that set is like one of the highest performing sets as a whole without just looking at the top chase cards on it. So the hype is real. I mean, these collections, people buying and selling and grading them is at like an all-time high, and it's only going to keep going up from there. Time the Mega Evolution base set comes out, you're not finding product anymore. And I said that a year ago, before that, Surging Sparks, I could barely find anything in shelves. At that point, well, certainly a year later with the release of the brand new sets for Mega Evolution, you're not finding it unless you're camping out or getting crazy, inflated prices from GameStop for pre-ordering or anything like that. And that's pretty much the story of what we've seen now for the last year, roughly 2 years, right? The increasing supply dwindling, but the ever-increasing demand not being able to hit that same supply. So you see these sets come out, Mega Evolution, which I love, Phantasmal Flames, Ascended Heroes, which is seen as certainly being as good as Evolving Skies roughly 5 years prior. The demand is just growing, and the supply trying to hit the demand is just not happening. So you're not able to get your hands on anything for sealed product. Even with the last 3 sets, right? Perfect Order, Chaos Rising, Pitch Black, those are not sets that in years prior people would be clamoring and going crazy for, and yet you still can't find anything on shelves anyway. That's kind of my quick summation of what has happened to the Pokemon card market here over the last 3 years. And honestly, it was kind of hard to see coming, even for people who were investing and collecting in products to hold for the long term 3, 4, 5 years ago, especially after the post-COVID hype that kind of, exploded. No one could have seen it exploding to such a level where now, 3 years after the Scarlet and Violet sets have come out, really any set, the demand can't be met by the supply. And it's kind of, sad, obviously, on one hand, but it was hard to see at the time because, again, 3 years ago, Scarlet and Violet, Paldea Evolved, Obsidian Flames, Paradox Rift, these sets were not seen with any great hype. You could go anywhere and find them. You could go to any store and they were heavily stocked with all these products, including the 151, Paldean Fates, the specialty sets. So to get from where we were, where product was readily available, to where we are now, I thought it'd be interesting to kind of go through it and kind of detail like what has really happened here over the last 3 years, and especially as we get to this current time during this summer lull, where people are saying that demand is crashing, the market is falling. Well, no, none of that is really happening. But certainly the 30th anniversary set is going to kind of make everything go skyrocketing again. For example, the Scarlet and Violet base set, which came out roughly 3 years ago, that's about $300 right now. When it came out, I mean, you honestly could have gotten it, probably like $80 for quite a long time, which is like kind of below market, and certainly it was below what Pokemon Center was even selling it for. And the Pokemon Center exclusive ETB boxes, those are roughly $300 as well. And yet, the top chase card, as I said earlier, is that Gardevoir, and that's like a $60 to $70 card. So the investing market is huge, just as the collecting market is huge. And yet, no one, I wouldn't say no one, I guess some people, but most people really couldn't see this coming, not to the degree that it has kind of exploded to today. One interesting thing to note about this is that most of what I've focused on here is on sealed product. The good news is that for people who actually like buying singles, and I highly recommend that, I think that's a much better use of money, is to just buy whatever cards you want as singles. It's way more affordable. But a lot of the cards, a lot of the great Fantastic Illustration rares are still affordable, highly collectible, highly investable, not to the same degree maybe that sealed product is, and maybe not to the degree that the graded cards, the slabs, have been over the last roughly 6 months or so. But at least the market is still like affordable for those types of cards. Maybe not for Black Bolt and White Flare, because even like the cheapest illustration rares in that set are kind of expensive because of how in high demand and how highly hyped that set is. But for most sets, even going back like 3 years, you can get most cards, illustration rares. I mean, that's kind of the big thing people love, right? Those are still fairly affordable, depending on which ones you're going for. Maybe not the special illustration rares, but at least the regular illustration rares are. And I think there is something to be said about that you can hop on eBay and just kind of shop around, and there is something fun about that. And certainly the market exists just for picking out singles and adding to your collections or to invest in. Obviously, trying to see like what happens next is kind of tricky. I think most people would agree, however, that things are not going to slow down. They've been slowing down, right, over the last few months here during the summer, coming off 3 sets that are kind of looked down upon. Nothing really crazy, especially coming off, Ascended Heroes, which is absolutely astronomically huge. But if you look forward to the 30th anniversary set and the one coming after that, the one focused on Mega Rayquaza, there's really no reason to think that anything is going to stop, that the market is going to suddenly crash, that demand is going to slow or just, erode completely. Those are things that are very unlikely to happen. Instead, it's far more likely that we're going to see a continuation of what we've been seeing really for the last few years here, which is product is going to be very, very hard to find. Even for 30th anniversary, which the general consensus is that's going to be printed in huge quantities. But even being printed in huge quantities doesn't mean you're going to be able to find any of it if it can't meet demand. And demand in Pokemon cards really is at an all-time high and has been increasing very readily since basically post-COVID. If you want to pinpoint it on Evolving Skies, but as I said, Evolving Skies, if you looked at the Moonbreon card out the gate, that was like a $200 card, which is hard to believe now, right? Because of how expensive it's become. Yet, for a long time after Evolving Skies came out, I would readily purchase single boosters off Pokemon Center just to open for fun. I'd open a few a week just for fun. And yet, you could have easily just bought the Moonbreon card for $200, and now you'd be sitting great, right? Unfortunately, it seems like those days are long over, and whether there's a change in the future, whether things can ever go back to kind of the pre-COVID era when cards were super readily available, or even the early years of Scarlet and Violet when you could go anywhere and buy, anything. If you wanted to buy Pauline Fates, that was literally everywhere. And now Pauline Fates is one of the most expensive sets to buy a sealed product, It just seems like those days really may be long gone, and it's kind of hard to see where there's going to be a change or a significant change in the future where these things will be made more readily available. So it's not all doom and gloom. As I said, buying singles is still fantastic. If you want to take out whatever singles you want, get them in local card shops, look on eBay. That's still a fantastic option. Still very affordable depending on which cards you're looking at. I mean, most cards are not going to be something over like $30. Depending on what the illustration rare is. So there's still plenty of opportunity to buy and invest, and that is at least still fantastic. And at the very least, hopefully this mass supply of the 30th anniversary set that's going to come out will make many of the cards affordable and collectible, and there is so much to be excited about in that set, and a lot to really want to invest and collect in. But what do you think? Do you think that the future is going to kind of be, I'll say, as bleak, I guess, as it's been in terms of actually finding any product on shelves? Or do you think it will be a return, that the market will continue to correct and adjust so that maybe in a year you'll actually be able to go out to a store and find sealed product? Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, and thank you for watching.